At a school pool, a girl of African descent slips and falls, humiliated by a group of mocking white models, her most crushing moment yet. Like and subscribe now to catch her incredible comeback in our latest video. And don't miss what's coming next. The late morning sun filtered through the tall windows of Westview High School, casting long, golden streaks across the linoleum floors of the bustling hallways, the air thick with the chatter of students rushing to their next classes, the sharp scent of cleaning solution mingling with the faint aroma of cafeteria food. A typical Tuesday in a suburban American high school where appearances often mattered more than character. And for Aisha Thompson, a 16-year-old black girl, this was a daily battlefield she had learned to navigate with her head down, her shoulders hunched, and her heart heavy. Aisha was not what most of her peers would call beautiful, at least not by the narrow standards of teenage popularity. She was slightly overweight, her skin a deep ebony that she had once loved but now felt like a target. Her hair often pulled back into a simple ponytail because she didn't know how to style it the way the other girls did. And her clothes, usually loose-fitting jeans and oversized hoodies, did little to accentuate her figure. She wasn't the kind of girl who turned heads, but she was the kind who felt every whisper, every sidelong glance, every stifled laugh like a dagger to her already fragile self-esteem. In a school where popularity was currency, Aisha was broke, and the ones who held all the wealth were the group of girls who had made her life a living nightmare for the past 2 years. Chloe Harper and her clique of picture-perfect friends. Chloe was everything Aisha wasn't: tall, blonde, and effortlessly beautiful, with piercing blue eyes and a smile that could charm teachers and boys alike. She was the queen bee of Westview High, a cheerleader, a straight-A student, and the kind of girl who knew exactly how to wield her beauty like a weapon. Her friends, Mia and Lauren, were her loyal followers, both equally stunning with their flawless skin and designer clothes. Their laughter a constant soundtrack to Aisha's humiliation. The trio had zeroed in on Aisha from the moment she'd transferred to Westview in her freshman year. It had started with small things: a snide comment about her weight in the cafeteria, a whispered, "She doesn't belong here," as they passed her in the halls. But over time, their cruelty had grown bolder, more public, more vicious. They mocked her clothes, her hair, her skin, often throwing in casual remarks about how girls like her could never fit in. Aisha had tried to ignore them at first, hoping they'd get bored and move on, but Chloe seemed to take a twisted pleasure in watching her squirm. In gym class, where Aisha struggled to keep up with the others, Chloe would call out loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Come on, Aisha, don't you want to at least try to look good?" Her friends would erupt into giggles, their eyes glinting with malice. And Aisha would feel her face burn, her hands trembling as she fought back tears in English class. When Aisha had dared to raise her hand to answer a question, Chloe had leaned over to Mia and whispered, loud enough for the whole room to hear, "She probably thinks she's smart because she's the only black girl here." The room had erupted into muffled laughter, and Aisha had sunk lower in her seat, her throat tight, her heart pounding with a mix of shame and anger she didn't know how to express. She wanted to scream, to tell them they were wrong, to fight back. But every time she opened her mouth, the words wouldn't come. Fear and self-doubt always won, and so she stayed silent, invisible, a shadow in her own life. The only place Aisha felt safe was the library, a quiet sanctuary where she could hide between the stacks of books and lose herself in stories of far-off places, places where girls like her could be heroes, not punching bags. She'd sit at a table in the corner, her notebook open but untouched, her mind replaying every cruel word, every mocking laugh. She'd scribble in their iffy margins sometimes, little doodles of herself as she wished she could be tall, confident, beautiful, but even those dreams felt impossible. She'd catch her reflection in the library window and wince, her round face, her chubby arms, her tired eyes staring back at her, a reminder of everything Chloe and her friends said she was: worthless, ugly, out of place. Aisha didn't have many friends. Most of the other students either ignored her or were too afraid of Chloe's wrath to get close. But there was one person who'd always been kind to her, Maya, a quiet Latina girl who sat next to her in biology. Maya was small and soft-spoken, with a warm smile that made Aisha feel seen. They didn't talk much, but Maya had a way of knowing when Aisha needed a friend. She'd slip her a note during class, a simple "You okay?" scrawled in her neat handwriting, or share her snacks during lunch, small gestures that meant the world to Aisha. It was Maya who'd first noticed how much the bullying was affecting her. One day after gym class, when Aisha had lingered in the locker room to avoid Chloe and her friends, Maya had found her sitting on a bench, her eyes red from crying. "You can't let them get to you," Maya had said softly, her voice gentle but firm. "They're just jealous because you're stronger than they'll ever be." Aisha had shaken her head, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm not strong, Maya. I'm nothing." Maya had frowned, her brown eyes flashing with something fierce. "You're wrong, Aisha. You're more than they'll ever understand, but you have to believe it too." Those words had lingered in Aisha's mind, a tiny spark of hope in a sea of despair. But believing in herself felt like an impossible task. Not when every day brought a new humiliation, a new reminder of how little she mattered. And as she walked through the halls of Westview High, her backpack heavy on her shoulders, her heart heavier still, Aisha couldn't shake the feeling that things would never change, that she'd always be the girl who didn't belong, the girl who wasn't enough. Little did she know, the worst was yet to come. A moment of public humiliation that would shatter her fragile confidence, but also ignite a fire within her, a fire that would change everything. The air in the school's indoor swimming facility was thick with the sharp scent of chlorine, the echoes of laughter and splashing water bouncing off the tiled walls, a cacophony of teenage energy that filled the space with a chaotic vibrancy. The fluorescent lights overhead cast a harsh glow on the shimmering blue water of the pool, where students from Westview High's physical education class moved with varying degrees of confidence, some diving in with practiced ease, others clinging to the edge, their hesitant strokes betraying their discomfort. For Aisha, the pool was a place of dread, not because she couldn't swim, she was decent enough in the water, but because it was yet another stage for Chloe and her clique to amplify their cruelty. Today was no exception. The girls' locker room had been a gauntlet of whispered insults as Aisha changed into her dark green swimsuit, the fabric clinging uncomfortably to her curves, her hands trembling as she adjusted the straps, trying to ignore the snickers from Chloe and her friends. "Looks like someone needs a bigger size," Chloe had said, her voice dripping with mockery as Mia and Lauren burst into giggles, their eyes glinting with malice. Aisha had kept her head down, her cheeks burning, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. She'd hurried out to the pool area, hoping to find a corner where she could disappear, but there was no escaping Chloe's gaze. The queen bee of Westview High stood by the pool's edge, her red swimsuit a stark contrast to her pale skin, her blonde hair pulled into a high ponytail that swished with every confident step. She was surrounded by Mia and Lauren, both equally stunning in their matching blue and white swimsuits, their laughter a cruel melody that followed Aisha like a shadow. The teacher, Coach Daniels, a middle-aged woman with a clipboard and a no-nonsense attitude, was busy organizing the class into groups for a relay race, her voice barking instructions over the noise. "Line up by the diving boards, let's get moving," she called, her tone sharp. Aisha lingered near the back, her arms crossed over her chest, her eyes darting around for Maya, her only ally. But Maya was on the other side of the pool, chatting with a few other girls, too far to offer any comfort. Aisha's stomach churned as she watched Chloe and her friends whisper to each other, their glances in her direction unmistakable. She knew they were planning something. She could feel it in the way Chloe's lips curled into a smirk, the way Maya's eyes narrowed with anticipation, and the way Lauren tossed her hair, her posture exuding a confidence that made Aisha feel even smaller. The relay race began, and Aisha was assigned to the last group, a small mercy that gave her a few more minutes to brace herself. She stood near the pool's edge, her bare feet gripping the wet tiles, the coolness of the floor a stark contrast to the heat of her anxiety. She watched as the other students swam, their strokes cutting through the water with varying degrees of skill. The boys' team, including Ethan, a quiet boy with kind eyes whom Aisha had harbored a secret crush on for months, was waiting their turn near the diving boards. Ethan's dark hair was damp from an earlier swim, his swim trunks a bright blue that matched the pool. He laughed softly at something his friend said, his smile lighting up his face. And for a brief moment, Aisha allowed herself to imagine what it would be like to talk to him, to be the kind of girl he'd notice. But that fleeting daydream shattered when Chloe's voice cut through the noise. "Hey, Aisha, you sure you don't want to sit this one out?" she called, her tone laced with false concern. Her friends snickered, their laughter sharp and biting. Aisha's throat tightened, her hands clenching into fists at her sides. She wanted to respond, to tell Chloe to leave her alone. But the words wouldn't come. They never did. Coach Daniels blew her whistle, signaling the start of Aisha's group, and Aisha stepped forward, her heart racing, her movements mechanical as she positioned herself near the edge. She could feel the weight of everyone's eyes on her, the boys' team watching from the sidelines, Chloe and her friends whispering just loud enough for her to hear. "This is going to be hilarious," Mia muttered, and Aisha's stomach dropped. She didn't see it coming. Not until it was too late. As she moved to dive into the water, her foot caught on something slick, a thin layer of conditioner that Chloe had discreetly poured onto the tiles while no one was looking. Aisha's balance faltered, her arms flailing as she tried to catch herself. But the wet floor gave her no purchase, and she fell hard, her knees slamming into the tiles, her hands slapping against the ground, water splashing around her in a chaotic spray. The sound of her fall echoed through the pool area, a sharp, humiliating crack that silenced the chatter for a moment, and then the laughter came, loud and unrelenting. Chloe and her friends doubled over, their hands clutching their stomachs as they pointed at Aisha. "Oh my God, did you see that?" Chloe gasped between laughs, her voice carrying over the water. "She went down like a ton of bricks." Mia and Lauren joined in, their laughter a cruel chorus that drowned out everything else. Aisha's face burned with shame, her eyes stinging with tears she refused to let fall. She looked up, her vision blurry, and saw Ethan and his friends watching from the sidelines, some of them chuckling, others looking away awkwardly. Ethan's expression was unreadable, a mix of surprise and discomfort, and that hurt more than anything, more than Chloe's laughter, more than the pain in her knees. Aisha wanted to disappear, to sink into the tiles and never come up. But Chloe wasn't done. She stepped closer, her shadow looming over Aisha, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. "Oh, poor thing. Maybe you should stick to the shallow end next time." Her friends erupted into another round of laughter, and Aisha's hands trembled as she pushed herself up, her swimsuit clinging to her skin, her body shaking with a mix of humiliation and rage. She didn't say a word. She couldn't. Her throat was too tight, her chest too heavy. But as she stood, her eyes met Chloe's, and for the first time, something shifted inside her, a spark of defiance, a quiet resolve that whispered she couldn't let this go on. Not anymore. Coach Daniels finally noticed the commotion, her voice sharp as she shouted, "What's going on over there?" But Aisha didn't wait for her to intervene. She turned and walked toward the locker room, her steps unsteady, her heart pounding, the sound of Chloe's laughter fading behind her. She didn't know how, she didn't know when, but in that moment, Aisha made a promise to herself. She would change, she would rise, and she would make sure Chloe and everyone else saw her for who she truly was. Not the girl who fell, but the girl who got back up. The locker room was a cold, sterile refuge. The faint hum of the overhead vents mixing with the distant echoes of laughter still ringing in Aisha's ears. The tiles beneath her feet were damp from the pool, her dark green swimsuit clinging to her skin, heavy with water and shame. She stood in front of the mirror, her reflection a blurry mess through the tears she could no longer hold back. Her knees throbbed from the fall, red and scraped, But the pain in her chest was far worse. A deep, aching wound carved by Chloe's cruelty and the laughter of her classmates. Aisha's hands gripped the edge of the sink, her knuckles whitening, her breath coming in short, ragged gasps. She couldn't get the image out of her mind. Chloe's mocking smirk, Mia and Lauren's cackling, the way Ethan had looked at her, his expression a mix of pity and discomfort. It was too much, too heavy, too humiliating. She wanted to scream, to shatter the mirror in front of her, to make the world feel the weight of her pain. But instead, she stood there, frozen, her tears falling silently, each one a testament to the years of torment she'd endured, the years of feeling like she didn't belong, like she'd never be enough. Aisha wiped her face with the back of her hand, her vision clearing just enough to see herself, really see herself, her round face, her tired eyes, the way her shoulders slumped as if carrying an invisible burden. She hated what she saw. Not because she believed Chloe's insults, but because she'd let them define her. She'd let them strip away her confidence, her joy, her sense of self. And in that moment, something snapped inside her. A quiet, burning resolve that started as a whisper and grew into a roar. She was done. Done hiding. Done crying. Done letting Chloe and her friends dictate her worth. Aisha straightened her posture, her jaw tightening, her eyes narrowing with a determination she hadn't felt in years. She would change. Not for Chloe, not for Ethan, not for anyone else, but for herself. She would take back her power, her dignity, her life, and she'd start right now. The locker room door creaked open, and Maya slipped inside, her brown eyes wide with concern. "Aisha, are you okay?" she asked, her voice soft but urgent. Aisha turned to her, her expression a mix of pain and resolve. "No, she said simply, her voice steady despite the tears staining her cheeks. "But I will be." Maya frowned, stepping closer. "What happened out there? It wasn't your fault. Chloe set you up. I saw her pour something on the floor." Aisha's hands clenched into fists, her anger flaring at the confirmation of her suspicions. But she shook her head. "It doesn't matter. Maya, not anymore. I'm done letting her win." Maya's eyes softened, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Good, because you're stronger than she'll ever be." Those words, the same ones Maya had said before, hit Aisha differently this time. They weren't just a comfort, they were a call to action, a reminder of the strength she'd buried deep inside. Aisha nodded, her resolve hardening. "I'm going to change. Maya, I'm going to be someone they can't ignore." Maya squeezed her arm, her smile widening. "I'll be right here with you, every step of the way." And with that, Aisha felt a flicker of hope, a tiny light in the darkness that had consumed her for so long. She didn't know how she'd do it, but she knew she would. She had to. The rest of the day passed in a blur, Aisha avoiding Chloe and her friends, keeping her head down in the halls. But her mind was racing. That night, she sat at her desk in her small bedroom, the walls covered in faded posters of pop stars and inspirational quotes her mother had hung up years ago, her laptop open in front of her. She started researching, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she looked up healthy eating plans, workout routines, anything that could help her transform her body and her mindset. She wasn't just looking to lose weight. She wanted to feel strong, to feel capable, to feel like she could stand up to anyone. She found a local gym that offered free classes for teens, and without hesitation, she signed up for a trial session. The next morning, Aisha woke up before dawn, her alarm blaring in the quiet of her room. She pulled on a pair of old sweatpants and a loose t-shirt, her sneakers worn but functional. She slipped out of the house before her parents were awake, her heart pounding with a mix of nerves and excitement. The gym was a 10-minute walk from her house, a small, no-frills building with a faded sign out front. Inside, the air smelled of sweat and rubber mats, the sound of weights clanking and treadmills humming filling the space. Aisha felt out of place at first, her eyes darting around at the other people, mostly adults. their movements confident and purposeful. But then she spotted a woman near the back, a trainer named Coach Jackson, a tall, muscular woman with a warm smile and an air of quiet authority. Coach Jackson noticed Aisha's hesitation and walked over. "First time?" she asked, her voice kind but firm. Aisha nodded, her throat tight. I want to get stronger," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Coach Jackson's smile widened. "You've come to the right place. Let's get started." Over the next hour, Coach Jackson guided Aisha through a beginner's workout, teaching her how to use the treadmill, showing her basic strength exercises with light dumbbells. Aisha's muscles burned, her breath coming in short gasps. But she pushed through, her determination outweighing her discomfort. Coach Jackson watched her closely, nodding in approval. "You've got grit, kid," she said as they finished. "Keep showing up, and you'll surprise yourself." Aisha left the gym that morning with a soreness in her body and a fire in her heart. She felt alive, like she was finally taking control of her life. Over the next few weeks, she built a routine. Waking up early to hit the gym before school, eating healthier meals, swapping out chips and soda for fruits and water. Her parents noticed the change, her mother beaming with pride. "You're glowing, baby," she said one evening over dinner. And for the first time in a long time, Aisha believed her. She started journaling too, writing down her goals, her fears, her victories. Each entry a step toward the person she wanted to be. She wasn't just changing her body, she was changing her mind, her spirit. And with every drop of sweat, every healthy meal, every page in her journal, Aisha felt herself growing stronger, more confident, more determined to prove to Chloe, to Ethan, to the whole school, that she was more than the girl who fell. She was a force to be reckoned with. And she was just getting started. The morning light filtered through the cracked blinds of Aisha's bedroom, casting soft patterns on the faded carpet. The air cool and crisp with the promise of spring, a season of renewal that mirrored the transformation unfolding within her. It had been 4 months since the incident at the pool. 4 months since Aisha had made the decision to take control of her life, and the changes were undeniable. Her alarm buzzed softly on the nightstand, a gentle reminder of the routine she'd built with unwavering determination. She rolled out of bed, her movements swift and purposeful, no longer the sluggish, self-conscious girl who had once dreaded facing the day. Aisha pulled on her gym clothes, a fitted black tank top and matching leggings, a far cry from the oversized t-shirt she used to hide in, her sneakers laced up with a quiet confidence. She caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror before heading out. Her reflection a testament to her hard work. Her body was leaner, stronger, her arms toned from countless hours lifting weights with Coach Jackson. Her skin glowed with a healthy radiance, the result of a consistent skincare routine she'd learned from online tutorials. Her hair, once a source of insecurity, was now styled in neat braids that framed her face, accentuating her high cheekbones and the spark in her brown eyes. Aisha smiled at herself, a small but genuine smile, the kind she hadn't worn in years. She felt good, not just about how she looked, but about who she was becoming. The gym was her sanctuary, a place where sweat and effort drowned out the echoes of Chloe's laughter. Coach Jackson had become more than a trainer. She was a mentor, a cheerleader, a steady presence who pushed Aisha to her limits and celebrated every milestone. "You're killing it today," Coach Jackson called out as Aisha finished a set of squats, her voice carrying over the hum of treadmills and the clank of weights. Aisha wiped the sweat from her brow, her chest heaving. "Thanks, Coach," she replied, her voice steady, stronger than it had ever been. She could feel the power in her body, the way her muscles flexed with each movement, the way her stamina had grown, allowing her to run longer, lift heavier, push harder. But the real change wasn't just physical. It was in her mind, in her spirit. Aisha no longer walked with her head down. She no longer shrank away from mirrors or avoided eye contact. She was learning to love herself, to see her worth beyond the cruel words of her classmates. And that newfound confidence began to ripple into every part of her life. At school, Aisha's transformation didn't go unnoticed. She walked through the halls of Westview High with her shoulders back, her steps deliberate, her braids swaying with each stride. Her clothes, now more fitted, more stylish, hugged her figure in a way that made her feel seen, not as a target, but as a presence. Students who had once ignored her now did it a double take, their whispers no longer cruel but curious. "Is that Aisha?" one girl murmured to her friend as they passed in the cafeteria. "She looks different." Her friend nodded, her eyes wide. "She looks good." Aisha heard them, her heart swelling with a quiet pride. But not everyone was ready to accept her change. Chloe and her clique still lingered like a dark cloud, their beauty a weapon they wielded with precision. During lunch, Aisha sat with Maya at their usual table, a tray of grilled chicken and veggies in front of her, a stark contrast to the greasy pizza she used to eat. Chloe and her friends sat a few tables away, their laughter loud and performative. Chloe's blue eyes locked onto Aisha, her lips curling into a smirk. "Looks like someone's trying to play dress up," she called out, her voice carrying across the cafeteria. Mia and Lauren snickered, their heads tilted in unison. "Yeah, but it's not like it changes anything," Mia added, her tone sharp. "You can't fix what's broken." Aisha's hands tightened around her fork, her jaw clenching, but she didn't look away. Not this time. She met Chloe's gaze, her eyes steady, unflinching. "I'm not broken," she said, her voice calm but firm, the words hanging in the air like a challenge. Chloe's smirk faltered for a fraction of a second, her confidence shaken by Aisha's newfound boldness, but she quickly recovered, tossing her hair with a dismissive laugh. "Whatever, keep dreaming," she said, turning back to her friends. But Aisha could see it, the flicker of unease in Chloe's eyes, the realization that Aisha was no longer the easy target she used to be. Maya squeezed Aisha's hand under the table, her smile beaming with pride. "You're amazing," she whispered. And Aisha felt a warmth spread through her chest, a warmth that fueled her determination to keep going. Beyond the gym and the cafeteria, Aisha had started exploring new ways to express herself. She'd taken up photography, a hobby she'd always been curious about, borrowing her dad's old camera to capture the world around her. She'd spend hours after school in the park, snapping photos of flowers, birds, the way the sunlight danced on the grass. She found beauty in the small things. And in doing so, she began to see beauty in herself. She started posting her photos online, her social media account, a quiet space where she could share her journey, her captions simple but heartfelt. Learning to see the world differently, she wrote under a photo of a blooming tulip. And to her surprise, people responded. Classmates she'd never spoken to left comments. "This is stunning." One wrote, "You've got an eye for this." Another added. Aisha's follower count grew, slowly but steadily. Each like, each comment a small validation of her worth, a reminder that she had something to offer, something valuable, something Chloe could never take away. At home, Aisha's parents noticed the change too. Her father, a quiet man who worked long hours at the factory, watched her with a mix of pride and awe. "You're glowing, sweetheart," he said one evening as they sat on the couch. A rare moment of stillness in their busy lives. Aisha smiled, her heart full. "I'm trying, Dad," she replied, and her mother, who'd always been her biggest cheerleader, pulled her into a tight hug. "You're doing more than trying, baby. You're shining." Those words stayed with Aisha, a beacon of light in the moments when doubt crept in. Because despite her progress, there were still days when the old insecurities resurfaced. Days when Chloe's words echoed in her mind. Days when she wondered if she'd ever truly be enough. But each time, Aisha pushed through, reminding herself of how far she'd come, of the strength she'd built, of the person she was becoming. She wasn't just changing her body, she was changing her story, rewriting the narrative that had once defined her. And as spring turned to summer, Aisha felt a shift. a quiet confidence that settled deep in her bones. She was ready for the next step, ready to show the world and Chloe that she was more than the girl who fell. She was a girl who rose, stronger, braver, and more beautiful than anyone could have imagined. The sun hung high in the sky, its golden rays filtering through the tall windows of Westview High's auditorium, the air buzzing with anticipation as students gathered for a special assembly. The room was a sea of chatter and excitement. The wooden stage at the front, adorned with a large banner that read, "Westview Diversity Campaign, Find Our Face." In bold, colorful letters, the school had launched an initiative to promote inclusivity, a campaign that would select a student to be the face of their new promotional materials, a role that would involve a professional photo shoot and a feature in the school's magazine. Aisha sat near the back of the auditorium, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her heart racing with a mix of nerves and determination. She wore a fitted navy dress that hugged her newly toned figure, her braids cascading over her shoulders, her makeup subtle but enhancing her natural beauty, a far cry from the girl who used to hide in oversized hoodies. Maya sat beside her, her eyes bright with encouragement. "You've got this, Aisha," she whispered, squeezing her hand. Aisha managed a small smile, her stomach churning. She had signed up for the contest on a whim, spurred by a newfound confidence and a desire to prove herself, not just to Chloe, but to everyone who had ever doubted her. The auditorium lights dimmed, and Principal Carter, a stern but fair woman with graying hair, stepped onto the stage, her voice booming through the microphone. "Good morning, students. Today we're here to celebrate diversity and find the face of Westview High, someone who embodies our values of inclusivity, resilience, and authenticity." The crowd erupted into applause, and Aisha felt a surge of hope. Those were values she'd come to live by over the past few months. Values she'd fought for with every drop of sweat, every moment of doubt she'd pushed through. The principal explained the process. Each contestant would give a short speech about why they wanted to represent the school, followed by a brief photo shoot on stage to showcase their presence. The judges, Principal Carter, the art teacher, Mr. Lopez, and a local photographer named Ms. Evans would then deliberate and announce the winner. Aisha's name was near the end of the list, which gave her plenty of time to watch the other contestants, her nerves growing with each passing minute. Most of the participants were confident, polished students, some from the drama club, others from the cheerleading squad, including Chloe, who stepped onto the stage with her usual air of entitlement, her red dress clinging to her perfect figure, her blonde hair gleaming under the stage lights. Chloe's speech was predictably self-centered. "I've always been a leader at Westview," she said, her voice smooth and rehearsed. "I'm the perfect face to represent our school because I know how to inspire others to be their best selves." The crowd clapped politely, but Aisha could see the smugness in Chloe's smile as she posed for her photo shoot, her movements effortless, her beauty undeniable. Aisha's hands tightened into fists, her resolve hardening. She wouldn't let Chloe's perfection intimidate her. Not anymore. The other contestants went by in a blur, some stumbling over their words, others shining with charisma. And then, finally, it was Aisha's turn. The announcer called her name. "Aisha Thompson!" And the room fell into a hushed murmur, students exchanging curious glances, whispering to each other, "Isn't that the girl who fell at the pool?" one voice muttered. Aisha's heart pounded, but she stood, her chin held high, her steps steady as she walked to the stage. The spotlight was blinding, the weight of hundreds of eyes pressing down on her, but she didn't falter. She took a deep breath, her hand steadying on the microphone. "My name is Aisha Thompson," she began, her voice clear and strong. "I'm here because I believe in what this campaign stands for. Diversity isn't just about how we look. It's about who we are, what we've overcome, and how we lift each other up. I've spent years feeling like I didn't belong, like I wasn't good enough. But I've learned that my worth isn't defined by what others think of me. It's defined by how I see myself. I've worked hard to become the best version of myself, not just for me, but to show others that they can too. I want to represent Westview because I know what it's like to feel invisible, and I want to be a voice for those who feel the same. The room was silent for a moment, the weight of her words sinking in, and then the applause started, slow at first, then growing into a wave of sound that filled the auditorium. Aisha felt her chest swell with pride, her eyes scanning the crowd, catching Maya's beaming smile, Coach Jackson's nod of approval from the back. Even Ethan, who sat near the front, clapped with a look of genuine admiration. The photo shoot followed, and Aisha moved with a grace she didn't know she had. Her poses natural, her smile radiant. Miss Evans, the photographer, called out, "Beautiful, Aisha, you're a natural." And Aisha felt a thrill of possibility, a sense that she was exactly where she was meant to be. When she stepped off the stage, the energy in the room had shifted. Students whispered in awe. "She was amazing," one said. "I didn't expect that," another added. But Chloe's reaction was far less kind. She sat with her arms crossed, her blue eyes narrowed, her lips pressed into a thin line. As Aisha passed by, Chloe leaned toward Mia and muttered, loud enough for Aisha to hear, "She's delusional if she thinks she can win. This isn't a pity contest." Aisha's steps faltered for a moment, her anger flaring, but she kept walking, her head held high. She wouldn't let Chloe's words derail her. Not now. The judges deliberated for what felt like an eternity, the auditorium buzzing with tension. Aisha sat with Maya, her hands clasped tightly, her heart pounding. And then Principal Carter returned to the stage, a small envelope in her hand. "After careful consideration," she said, her voice steady, "the face of Westview High's diversity campaign is Aisha Thompson." The room erupted into cheers, students jumping to their feet, clapping and whistling. Maya pulled Aisha into a tight hug, tears in her eyes. "I knew you could do it," she cried. Aisha was stunned, her breath catching in her throat. She stood, her legs shaky, and made her way to the stage. The spotlight warm on her skin, the applause a roaring wave that drowned out the doubts she'd carried for so long. She took the microphone, her voice trembling with emotion. "Thank you. This means more to me than I can say. I hope I can make you all proud." The crowd cheered even louder, but not everyone was celebrating. Chloe's face was a mask of fury, her hands clenched into fists, her friends whispering nervously beside her. Aisha had done the impossible. She had risen above the girl who fell, above the girl who was mocked, and now she stood as a symbol of everything Chloe had tried to destroy. But Aisha knew this was only the beginning. The real challenge was yet to come, and she was ready to face it head-on. The auditorium at Westview High buzzed with a charged energy, the echoes of applause still lingering in the air as Aisha stood on the stage, the spotlight warm on her skin, her hands trembling slightly around the microphone, the weight of her victory sinking in. She had just been named the face of the school's diversity campaign, a title that felt like a crown she'd fought tooth and nail to wear. The crowd was on their feet, students cheering, whistling, their faces alight with admiration. Maya's tear-streaked smile beaming from the front row, Coach Jackson clapping with a proud nod. Even Ethan, the boy Aisha had once dreamed of impressing, stood with a look of genuine respect. But amidst the sea of celebration, there was a storm brewing. Chloe sat in the third row, her arms crossed tightly, her red dress a stark contrast to the pale fury on her face, her blue eyes blazing with a rage she could barely contain. Her friends, Mia and Lauren, sat beside her, their expressions a mix of shock and unease, whispering nervously as Chloe's jaw clenched, her hands balling into fists. She couldn't believe it. Aisha, the girl she'd mocked, the girl she'd humiliated, the girl she'd made fall at the pool, had just taken the one thing Chloe had always assumed was hers. The title, the spotlight, the validation. It was unthinkable, unbearable. And as Aisha stepped down from the stage, her navy dress catching the light, her braids swaying with each confident step, Chloe's anger boiled over. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor, the sound cutting through the fading applause. "This is a joke!" she shouted, her voice sharp and venomous. The room fell silent and students turning in their seats, their eyes wide with shock. Aisha froze mid-step, her heart pounding, her victory suddenly fragile under the weight of Chloe's outburst. Principal Carter, still on the stage, frowned, her voice firm. "Miss Harper, sit down, this is not the time." But Chloe ignored her, her gaze locked on Aisha, her lips curling into a sneer. "You don't deserve this," she spat, her words dripping with disdain. "You think you can just change your clothes, lose a few pounds, and suddenly you're better than me? This isn't a charity case. Aisha, they only picked you because they felt sorry for you, because you're the sad little girl who fell at the pool." The auditorium gasped, a collective inhale that sucked the air from the room. Students exchanged uneasy glances, some whispering, others staring in disbelief. Aisha felt the words hit her like a punch, each one a dagger aimed at the insecurities she'd worked so hard to bury. Her hands trembled, her throat tightened, and for a moment, she was that girl again, the girl on the poolside floor, the girl who felt worthless. But then she looked at Chloe, really looked at her, and saw something she hadn't noticed before. Fear. Chloe was afraid of losing her power, afraid of Aisha's rise, and that realization lit a fire in Aisha's chest, a fire that burned away her doubt, her fear, her silence. She turned to face Chloe, her steps deliberate, her eyes steady, the crowd watching with bated breath. "You're wrong, Aisha said, her voice low but firm, carrying a strength that silenced the room. "They didn't pick me because they felt sorry for me. They picked me because I earned it, because I fought for it, because I know what it means to rise above people like you." Chloe's sneer faltered, her confidence shaken, but she doubled down, stepping closer, her voice rising. "You'll never be me, Aisha. You'll never be good enough. You're just a—" But Aisha cut her off, her voice rising now, a powerful wave that drowned out Chloe's venom. "I don't want to be you, Chloe. I want to be better. I've spent years letting you make me feel small, letting you make me feel like I didn't belong. But I'm done. I've worked harder than you'll ever understand. I've cried, I've sweat, I've rebuilt myself from the ground up. And I did it all while you were busy tearing others down to feel big." The room was silent, the weight of Aisha's words hanging heavy in the air. Students stared, their mouths slightly open, their eyes wide with awe. Chloe's face flushed red, her hands shaking. But Aisha wasn't finished. She took a step closer, her voice steady, her gaze unyielding. "You made me fall at the pool. You laughed. You humiliated me in front of everyone. But that moment didn't break me. It showed me what I was capable of. And now here I am, standing where you thought you'd be. Because I'm stronger than your cruelty, stronger than your hate." The auditorium erupted into applause, a thunderous roar that shook the walls. Students jumped to their feet, cheering, clapping, some even shouting Aisha's name. Maya was crying openly now, her hands pressed to her face. Coach Jackson wiped a tear from her eye, her pride palpable. Ethan stood with a smile, his applause loud and unwavering. Chloe stood frozen, her face a mask of shock and humiliation. Her friends shrinking in their seats, their laughter long gone. Principal Carter stepped forward, her voice cutting through the noise. "That's enough, Miss Harper. You will see me in my office immediately." Chloe's eyes darted around the room, searching for support, but there was none. The crowd was with Aisha, their cheers a testament to her victory, not just in the contest, but in the battle for her own worth. Chloe turned on her heel, her head down, her steps quick as she stormed out of the auditorium, her friends trailing behind her, their heads bowed in shame. Aisha stood there, her chest heaving, her heart racing, but her spirit soaring. She had faced Chloe, faced her fears, faced the girl she used to be, and she had won. The crowd continued to cheer, their voices a symphony of support, and as Aisha looked out at them, her eyes shining with tears of triumph, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders, a weight she'd carried for far too long. She had reclaimed her power, her dignity, her place. And in that moment, she knew that this was more than a victory over Chloe. It was a victory for every student who had ever felt invisible, every person who had ever been told they weren't enough. Aisha had shown them that they could rise, that they could fight, that they could win. And as the applause washed over her, she felt a peace she'd never known. A peace that told her she was exactly where she was meant to be. Fan 7 Haukwava by Huck Toitiu Mwot. 102, the auditorium doors swung shut behind Chloe, her hurried footsteps echoing down the empty hallway, a stark contrast to the roaring applause still filling the room. Aisha stood on the stage, her chest rising and falling with the weight of her triumph, the crowd's cheers washing over her like a cleansing wave, erasing years of doubt and pain. She felt lighter than she ever had, as if the burden of Chloe's cruelty had finally been lifted. Her navy dress shimmered under the stage lights, her braids framing a face that glowed with a newfound strength. Students continued to clap, some wiping tears from their eyes, others shouting her name in a chant that reverberated off the walls. Maya rushed onto the stage, throwing her arms around Aisha. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Aisha hugged her back, her own eyes glistening. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied, her voice soft but steady. Principal Carter stepped forward, her expression a mix of pride and authority. "Aisha, you've shown us all what true resilience looks like," she said, her voice carrying over the fading applause. "You'll be an incredible ambassador for Westview High." The crowd cheered again, and Aisha felt her heart swell, not just with pride, but with a sense of responsibility. She knew this moment wasn't just about her. It was about every student who had ever felt like they didn't belong. Every person who had ever been told they weren't enough. As the assembly ended, students filed out of the auditorium, their chatter filled with awe and admiration. "I can't believe she stood up to Chloe like that," one girl said to her friend. "She's amazing," and another added, their voices a chorus of support that followed Aisha as she stepped off the stage. But not everyone was ready to let go of the past. Chloe stood outside the principal's office, her arms crossed, her face still flushed with anger. Mia and Lauren had abandoned her, their loyalty crumbling in the face of her humiliation. Principal Carter arrived, her expression stern. "Miss Harper, your behavior today was unacceptable," she said, her voice cold. "You will serve a week of detention, and I expect a written apology to Aisha by tomorrow morning." Chloe's jaw tightened, her eyes flashing with defiance. But she nodded, her pride too battered to argue. Inside, she was reeling. The image of Aisha's unwavering confidence burned into her mind, a stark reminder of her own failure. She had always thought she was untouchable, the queen bee who could do no wrong. But Aisha had shattered that illusion, exposing her cruelty for what it was. Over the next few days, the school buzzed with the aftermath of the assembly. Aisha's victory became the talk of the halls, her story spreading like wildfire. Students who had once ignored her now stopped to congratulate her, their smiles genuine, their words kind. "You were incredible up there, Pipa, yeah," a boy from her math class said, his tone sincere. "I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you sooner." Aisha nodded, her heart warmed by the unexpected support. "Thank you," she replied, her voice soft but confident. She noticed a shift in the way people looked at her, no longer with pity or disdain, but with respect, admiration, even awe. But the most surprising moment came when Chloe approached her. It was during lunch. Aisha sitting with Maya at their usual table, a tray of grilled chicken and veggies in front of her. Chloe walked over, her head down, her usual confidence replaced by a hesitant awkwardness. She held a folded piece of paper in her hand, her voice barely above a whisper as she spoke. "I'm sorry, Aisha," she said, her tone strained. "I was wrong about everything." Aisha looked up, her expression unreadable, the memory of Chloe's cruelty flashing through her mind. The pool incident. The years of taunts, the pain she'd carried for so long. She took the paper, unfolding it to reveal a handwritten apology, the words clumsy but sincere. "I don't expect you to forgive me," Chloe continued, her voice trembling. "But I want you to know I see you now. I see how strong you are. And I'm ashamed of what I did." Aisha studied her for a moment, her heart torn. Part of her wanted to lash out, to make Chloe feel the pain she'd inflicted. But another part, the part that had grown through months of hard work and self-love, knew that holding on to anger wouldn't heal her. "I hear you, Chloe," Aisha said finally, her voice calm but firm. "But forgiveness isn't something I can give right now. You hurt me, deeply, and I need time." Chloe nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I understand," she whispered, turning to walk away. Her shoulders slumped. For the first time, Aisha saw Chloe not as a bully, but as a girl who was lost. A girl who had built her confidence on tearing others down. And while Aisha wasn't ready to forgive, she felt a small sense of closure, a sense that she had finally taken back her power. The rest of the week brought new opportunities for Aisha. She began working with the school's media team on the diversity campaign, posing for professional photos that would be featured in the school magazine. Ms. Evans, the photographer from the contest, guided her with a gentle hand. "You have a natural presence, Aisha," she said, adjusting the lighting. "The camera loves you." Aisha smiled, her confidence growing with each click of the shutter. She felt beautiful, not because of her looks, but because of the strength she carried, the story she told through her eyes. Her journey became a source of inspiration for others. Students began approaching her, sharing their own stories of bullying and self-doubt. "You gave me hope," a shy freshman girl told her one day, her voice trembling. "I thought I'd never fit in, but seeing you up there, it made me believe I could." Aisha listened, her heart full, and offered words of encouragement. "You're enough, just as you are," she said, her voice warm. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Her words spread, a ripple effect that touched more lives than she could have imagined. Aisha also started a small photography club with Maya, a space where students could express themselves through art. The club became a safe haven for those who felt out of place, a community built on acceptance and creativity. Aisha's photos, once a private escape, now became a way to connect with others, to show them the beauty she saw in the world and in themselves. As the weeks passed, Aisha's influence grew, her story a testament to the power of resilience, the power of self-love. She had turned her pain into purpose, her humiliation into a lesson, and in doing so, she had changed not just her own life, but the lives of those around her. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, that there would still be challenges, still be doubts, but she was ready to face them with the strength she'd built, the strength that no one could ever take away. Then, the soft hum of the studio lights filled the air, their warm glow casting a gentle radiance on Aisha as she sat poised on a sleek black chair. Her navy blazer and white blouse, a perfect blend of professionalism and elegance. Her braids swept over one shoulder, her eyes bright with a quiet confidence that had become her signature. She was in the middle of a televised interview, a small but significant moment that marked the culmination of her journey. The studio was a modern space, all glass and steel, with a large window overlooking the city skyline. The host, a woman named Rachel Evans with a warm smile and a sharp intellect, leaned forward, her voice steady and engaging. "Aisha, your story has touched so many people, not just at Westview High, but across the country. What message do you hope to send to those watching right now?" Aisha took a deep breath, her hands resting calmly in her lap, her mind racing with the weight of the moment. She thought about the girl she used to be, the girl who hid in oversized hoodies, who cried in the locker room, who felt like she'd never belong. And then she thought about the girl she'd become, the girl who had risen above it all. I want people to know that their worth isn't defined by what others think of them, she said, her voice clear and resonant. It's defined by how they see themselves, by the strength they find within. No matter where you come from, no matter what you look like, you deserve to be seen, to be heard, to be respected. And if you're struggling, if you feel invisible, keep going, keep fighting, because you're stronger than you know. The studio audience erupted into applause, their cheers a testament to the power of her words. Rachel nodded, visibly moved. That's beautiful, Aisha, she said. And what about those who don't have the platform you do now? What would you say to them? Aisha's expression softened, her eyes warm with empathy. I'd tell them that you don't need a stage to make a difference. You don't need a title or a spotlight. Change starts with you, with the way you carry yourself, the way you treat others. Stand firm in who you are, and you'll inspire others just by being you. The audience clapped again, their faces alight with inspiration, and Aisha felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing her words were reaching hearts far beyond the studio walls. The interview marked a new chapter in Aisha's journey, one that had begun with a fall but ended with a rise. In the months following her victory at Westview High, Aisha had embraced her role as the face of the diversity campaign, her photos gracing the school's magazine, her story shared on social media, where it went viral. Hashtags like #Aisha inspires and #RiseAbove trending for weeks. She had become a symbol of resilience, a beacon of hope for those who had ever felt less than. Her work with the photography club had grown too. The small group of misfits she and Maya had started now a thriving community, their meetings filled with laughter, creativity, and acceptance. Aisha's photos, once a private escape, now adorn the school's art gallery, each image a story of beauty and strength, a reflection of the world as she saw it, a world where everyone had a place. But Aisha's journey didn't stop at Westview. Her story caught the attention of a local modeling agency who reached out with an offer to represent her. At first, Aisha hesitated, the idea of stepping into the world of professional modeling both thrilling and terrifying, but with encouragement from Maya, Coach Jackson, and her parents, she took the leap. Her first photo shoot was for a national campaign promoting body positivity, a cause close to her heart. She stood in front of the camera, her curves celebrated, her confidence radiant. The resulting images were stunning, her face appearing on billboards and magazine covers. A testament to the beauty of diversity, Aisha's career blossomed, but she never forgot where she came from. She returned to Westview often, speaking at assemblies, mentoring younger students, sharing her story to remind them that they too could rise above their challenges. One evening, as the school year drew to a close, Aisha stood on the stage of the auditorium once more, this time as a guest speaker for the graduating class, her voice steady, her presence commanding. You are enough, she told the students, her words echoing through the room. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Your journey, your struggles, your triumphs, they make you who you are, and that's something to be proud of. The crowd cheered, their faces a mix of awe and inspiration. And as Aisha stepped off the stage, she caught sight of Chloe in the back. Her former bully, now a quiet figure, her head bowed. Aisha had heard that Chloe had changed, that she'd started volunteering at a community center, that she'd apologized to others she'd hurt. And while Aisha wasn't ready to rebuild a relationship, she felt a small sense of peace, knowing that her own journey had sparked change in others, even in the person who had once hurt her the most. Months later, Aisha walked down a runway at a local fashion show, her first major event as a professional model. The lights were blinding, the music pulsing, the crowd a sea of faces watching her every move. She wore a stunning emerald gown, the fabric flowing around her like a second skin, her steps confident, her smile radiant. She felt powerful, beautiful, unstoppable. And as she reached the end of the runway, she paused, her eyes scanning the crowd, catching Maya's proud grin, her parents' tearful smiles, Coach Jackson's nod of approval. This was her moment, her victory, not just over Chloe, not just over the doubts that had once consumed her, but over the idea that she had to fit into someone else's mold to be worthy. Aisha had created her own mold, her own path, her own story, and it was one of triumph, of resilience, of love. As the fashion show ended, Aisha stood backstage, her heart full, her mind at peace. She knew this was just the beginning, that there would be more challenges, more moments of doubt, but she also knew she was ready to face them with the strength she'd built, the strength that had carried her from the poolside floor to the runway, from invisibility to inspiration. Aisha had turned her pain into power, her story into a movement, and as she looked out at the world, she smiled, knowing that sometimes the greatest victories weren't about winning, they were about rising, about inspiring, about showing the world that everyone, no matter who they are, deserves to shine. Aisha rose from a humiliating fall to become a celebrated model, inspiring millions with her resilience. Thank you for listening. If you loved her journey, like and share this video. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to never miss our latest stories of triumph and transformation.